Hi, welcome back to the channel. So today what we want to do is go over the process to remove and replace the sealant in your tubeless tire setup. Now you can use the same process whether you're putting on new tires or if you're going to do a maintenance on the current tires that you have on. So it's suggested that 2 to 3 times a season, depending on how often you use the bike, that you go in and replace or add sealant to your tires. Now, what I suggest is at least twice a season, you take that tire off, you clean out all the old sealant and all the little goobers that get caught in there, replace that sealant, and then put it back together. It also gives you an opportunity to inspect the rim tape that's in there because that can get little cracks where the spoke holes are. Now, I had a friend of mine on a Century ride a few years ago, and he was running tubeless tires on his road bike, and he hadn't done any maintenance on it in over a year, going on 2 years. And when he did get a puncture, I mean, this was a puncture that the sealant did not fix. He needed to put a tube in the tire to finish the ride. He couldn't get the tire off the rim. That's because the sealant is an adhesive. It does seal up. It does harden. It actually glued the tire to the rim, so he could not get that tire off on the roadside. So that's just a lesson that I learned. I didn't realize that could happen until I researched it. But you do need to go in and take that tire off and clean out that sealant at least twice a year, twice a season. This particular video, I am changing my tires. I'm going from a wider 2.2 inch or a 55 millimeter like a mountain bike tire that's on my gravel bike to a slightly thinner one. I'm going to go to a 45 millimeter. So those tires came in, and I'll go over the process of replacing those tires and what to look for during the process. All right, so thank you, and enjoy the video. So before I start, I remove both of the wheels. So here, we're removing the rear wheel off the bike. If you've had a locking rear derailleur, you want to unlock it, flip the lever so you can swing it back out of the way. And then I just take the wheel and I set it to the side. And I do the same on the front wheel. I'll unscrew the through axle and I'll just drop the wheel out. I have a practice of putting the through axles back in place so I don't drop them throughout the process and possibly damage the thread. So I'll put that through axle back in where it's safe. And also don't squeeze the brake levers now because the brakes don't have anything to support them. I always clean the wheels or any parts when I service a bike. I'm always cleaning. It makes it easier to work on the bike. So clean the wheels, clean the rims, give them a good wipe down. All right, so now you want to take your valve removal tool. This one here just happens to be from Stan's No Tubes. And just unthread the center portion of the valve. I always do this with the tire valve in the top position up around 12 o'clock. It prevents any liquid from coming out, any sealant from coming out. Go ahead and break the tire free from the bead now. And then go ahead and take one side off. And go ahead and take a look at the sealant that's inside. You can see there's still quite a bit of sealant in here. But go ahead and wipe that out. Sometimes I've reused it. I serviced these tires about 6 months ago, and I just used my syringe. I took the liquid out and I reused it, but I don't want to do that twice. Then go ahead and break the seal on the opposite side and remove the tire completely from the rim. Now again, cleaning. So let's clean that sealant out of the inside of the rim track. Let's get that nice and clean, and then let's inspect that tape. Let's inspect the rim tape to make sure there's no cracks. Now this rim tape doesn't last forever. You might want to be replacing that every season or every 2 seasons. For me, this is a year old. It looks good. I'm going to keep it on there. But if I do run into a trouble during the season, I'm going to have to replace it. I'll know that's the issue. Stop. You should probably keep some spare rim tape. I bought this to match the rims I have. This is the exact replacement that came with these particular DT Swiss rims. So I do have replacement rim tape, but for now I'm going to keep the tape that's in there. That looks good. I'm going to go another season on that, I hope. These are the Terravale tires that came on the Salsa Cutthroat. And, they're a good tire. I've got 1,800 miles on them. What I'm looking for is a tread that's a little bit smoother down the center, but more aggressive on the outside. I did notice that on a lot of the gravel rides I was going on this past season, that whenever I was taking a hard corner on gravel, I was losing traction here. And I'm looking for something a little bit more aggressive. So that's what I purchased, and you'll see those tires when I put those on. Now, these tires are still good. These are 2.2s, so they're pretty fat compared to the ones I'm putting on there, and I'm going to keep them. I'm going to keep them for different gravel rides that might have more single track that I'm going to want a larger tire on. So what I did is I cleaned out all the liquid sealant out of the center of the tire, but I'm going to have to go in a little bit later and clean off this hardened sealant to make sure that when I put these back on, that it seals properly. Also, on the front tire, which is this tire, I did have a puncture this past season, and it sealed itself. And you can see on the inside, here it is. I'm going to clean that out. I'm going to make sure that's not a solid hole. I mean, if it is a large hole, I'll properly patch that. So what I'm replacing the Terravales with are the WTB Riddlers. These are 45Cs. These are 45s instead of the 2.2. I believe a 2.2 is about a 54 or 55. So these would be a little bit narrower, but you can see they have more of an aggressive tread on the outside, and they're a little bit more smoother on the inside. Plus, they're a little bit narrower. These will be better for some of the straight up gravel roads that I've been racing on lately. So I'm going to give these a try for the 2023 season. So here we're going to open up the new tire. This is a foldable bead tire. And again, I don't expect these to be clean from the warehouse, so I'll go ahead and clean these as well. You don't want to have a dirty bead, and then that ends up causing you trouble down the road. It just takes a few seconds to clean everything now. All right, so I'm going to put the tire completely on the rim right now. I'm going to put it on. I'm going to try to pull the tire to one side to seal the bead against one side of the rim. You can't pull it to both sides. You'll keep popping the opposite side off, but you can get one side pretty good. I typically don't use any tools when I put the tires on the rims. One thing you want to make sure is that you get the direction of the tire in the proper orientation before you mount it on the rim. Now, always take a look around the outside of the tire, and if it's directional, it'll tell you with an arrow. It'll say rotation. Now, I just inspected these Riddlers, and there is no indicator for direction, so they're bidirectional. However, on the Terravales, as an example, I took these off, and you can see it's got a rotation indicator on it. So when the Terravales go back on, or when you mount a certain tire, always make sure you look for that rotation. To put a tire back on, you can pretty much do it without any tools. Now, here's a little trick using an inner tube to help keep radial force on the tire, because I don't have one of those big volume tire pumps. I just have a standard track pump. So putting the tire around the outside helps seal the bead, and then go ahead and pump it up. And you'll hear the bead pop in place right there. So I put about 20 pounds in, and then I'll let it back out again. I know the bead is set, and now I'll go ahead and I'll put the sealant in. All right, so I use the Stansno tubes. You can use any sealant that you like. The process is all the same. I just happen to have the stands. But you need to shake this up. You need to get that latex binder mixed in with the solvent before you start to put it in. So on the back of the container, it gives you the recommended quantity per tire. And in my case, because I'm putting on 45 millimeter, that's the 23 to 60 millimeter quantity. So I'm going to use between 2 and 3 ounces per tire. So I'll put in 3. I always go to a little bit higher side. And the syringe I'm going to use actually has graduations on it to help you measure that. Okay, so now that the sealant's in, I'm going to replace the valve core. After, you got to make sure that that seal, that rubber seals and stuff are clean and not damaged. So thread this in by hand, get it started so you don't cross thread it, get in as far as you can. And then after it's in as far as you can use the tool to finish it the rest of the way. And this doesn't, it just goes in hand tight. Just turn it nice and snug by hand, that's fine. And then make sure the valve is open and that it moves freely, that it's not jammed up. And this moves fine. So now we're all set to pump the tires up. So after you get some air in the tire, and I get about halfway up, so this got like 25 pounds in the tires now, I like to rotate them around. Give them a roll around the floor, get the sealant moving around on the inside of the tire, making sure it's covering the bead. You still may have a leaky bead, but give the solvent or the sealant an opportunity to get in there and get all over the inside of the tire to give it a chance to seal up. In this case, it's sealed pretty well. It's not coming up, but sometimes you get a little bit of a leakage on a seam where some of the sealant's coming out. But in this case, it worked out quite well. All right, so I'm just about done here. I got just about 32 PSI in this tire. I'm not quite sure what pressure I want to run in these. These are 45s. On the 2.2s or the 55s that I have with the Teravails, I like to run between 32 and 35 PSI. These here, I don't quite know what I want to run. So I'm going to start them off at 32 and give that a shot and see how that works out. But this tire's done, and now it's just repeating on the rear tire. So if you like this video of changing your tubeless tires and servicing those tires, go ahead and like and subscribe. All right, thank you very much.